welcome to Xandermonium, the talk show that gets you talking. I'm Xander Gibb, and on today's show, along with my guest co-host, Keith Swoop Lewis from Swoopsworld, I will be breaking down this week's hotter topics and taking your calls to establish exactly what you think. And in part two, I will be speaking to singer-songwriter Kenyth Mogan. More to come in a mere moment. Now, as per usual, you can interact with us during the show in the chat room at the bottom of the show page. Keep scrolling down. It will take you to the chat. If it doesn't let you chat, it's because you're not a member. You have to sign in with either Facebook or Twitter, which you can do very easily. You can also call us on 347-884-9061. That's 347-884-9061 with your questions and comments. You can tweet us. You can tweet me at Xander Gibb, Xandergibb, capital X, capital G. Don't forget that little at symbol. Swoop, you can tweet Swoop. And Swoop's Twitter handle is at Swoopsworld, SWOOPSWORLD. And you can tweet Kenyth. His Twitter handle is at Kenyth Mogan, and that's KENYTHMOGAN, capital K, capital M, and don't forget the at symbol. Tweet me if you were too shy, and I will make your point for you. Oh, yes, indeedy, I will. So where is the damn summer was my chant for this week. Now, it's been so cold on the East Coast, even the naked cowboy put clothes on. So getting dressed for bed in thermals, socks, a balaclava helmet is an everyday occurrence in my household, and what a sight to behold indeed. So the snow lies piled sky high on the streets, and the piles get bigger and bigger every day, and it becomes imperative to keep oneself away from the brink, as these dark months are potentially critical for anyone who suffers from depression. Now, some people are of the opinion that one way to tackle the winter blues is to get out more and get more natural sunlight, therefore increasing your vitamin D intake. Now, I'm not sure where I stand on this because I'm unsure of the science attached to it. I am, however, convinced that a positive outlook is essential, and surrounding yourself with positive people that have a positive outlook is essential. Now, I've managed for some time to get the negative Nancys out of my life, and even when I keep them at bay on social media most of the time, apart from the odd time, I respond to them with the word that starts with F, ends with F, and has "ucko" in the middle. Work that out if you can. So what if this is not enough? I hear you cry. Well, the only other two pieces of advice I can give are these. Number one, give it to God. Now, He's never let me down, and I know He never will. And also, number two, to breathe and reboot whenever you need to. Now, the times I am so stressed and that I cannot think, I basically switch off the phones and the computer, draw the blind, put in the earplugs, and sleep for a few hours to allow my body to rest and my brain to do that very thing, to reboot. Now, it really does work, and I suggest you try it next time you feel the need to do so. Well, until the summer comes, that is, at least. Now, that was Xander's soapbox for this week. If you would like to come and get on your soapbox about any subject, come tell us who's pissing you off. Maybe it's the president. Maybe it's me. Maybe it isn't. But come and get on your soapbox. Anyway, you can email me at Xander@XanderGibb.com. That's Xander@XanderGibb.com. Oh, yes, indeedy. Welcome to everybody that is in the chat. We're just waiting for my guest co-host to call in. He should be here any second. I was just watching on the TV while I was preparing for the show. I was watching Oprah's Where Are They Now? And apart from the celebrities that they had on this young girl, this young woman. And I think the charity that she started was called kids charity for kids or something like that. But the ethos was that they raise money for kids raise money for children in poorer countries and poorer climates, and it really kind of I don't know what it said to me was, Xander, what the hell are you doing for other people? And it kind of challenged me, you know. I know we do lots of things on this show to help people, but I think there's always more that can be done. So let me challenge you today, listeners, Xan fans, foxes, what are you doing to help other people? Call in and tell us on 347-884-9061. That's 347-884-9061. So joining me to break down the hotter topics, the issues that matter, is my guest co-host for the day, broadcaster and host of Swoopsworld, the one, the only, Mr. Keith Swoop Lewis. Welcome to the show, Swoop. How are you doing?
Thanks a lot, Xander. I'm having a great time, man. How are you doing today?
I am doing very, very well. So how has your week been?
My week's been great. I'm visiting family members in the southwest part of the country and enjoying my time here. So I'm doing that, and I actually had to bounce out of the chat room because I was getting like hearing you twice. So I couldn't figure out how to mute it.
Yeah, that happens when you're in chat and you're on the show as well. We often get that with people that are coming on the show. Please tell me it's warm wherever you are in the country right now.
No, it had been warm during the week, and now it's supposed to snow tonight. So not like they're getting on the East Coast, but just a little bit. Let us know that it gets cold here, and snow hits the ground. So it's all good.
Absolutely. I mean, there is a small part of me that wants to kind of feel glad about that. But, I often hear friends of mine that live in the California area saying, oh, it's a little bit cold today. And I'm like, so what is it? They're like, oh, it's 56. I'm like, come back to me when it's -7.
Well, see, that's where I live in California, in Southern California. And I hear you, man. I sometimes we're doing the show and we'll be talking about how cold it was that day. And we're like, well, it's like 62 today, and we realize there's people listening on the other coast, and then Peter's mom lives up in Canada, and we're like, well, maybe it's not as cold as we, really think it is.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I do get a little bit disgruntled when I have a friend who lives in Florida, and he's often on the show, and he says, oh, it's a little cold here today, and it's like I would swap. Really, I would. It's kind of it's a no-brainer, really.
I hear you.
But there you go. I suppose nobody is totally happy with the weather. I just want the summer to come back and for it to be warm enough to grill in the yard and sit and drink cold beer and sit and write in the sunshine. But I guess I've got a while to wait for that.
Yeah, it looks like you're going to have to wait a couple more months at least.
Yeah, unfortunately. Either that or I should just go to Barbados or Jamaica for 2 months and then come back when it warms up,
Exactly.
So this month, February, is Black History Month, and a century of Black life history and culture is the theme, chronicling the important contributions by African Americans to art, literature, sports, and culture. In the early 20th century, the rise of a totally new form of music, which we now know as jazz, can be traced back to African Americans, I've got the wrong teeth in today, of the post-World War I generation. Doo-wop, rock and roll, and hip-hop can all trace their roots to the African American experience. I always love that phrase, whatever it might mean, the African American experience. So legendary sports figures as well as artists, musicians, actors, and actresses also have undeniably contributed to American culture, and their influence continues to spread worldwide. So we're going to ask the listeners to call in, but then I'm going to ask the same question of you, Swoop. What does Black History Month mean to you? You can call us on 347-884-9061 to tell us what you think. That's 347-884-9061. So So before you answer, I want to tell you that I was in a group of friends a couple of years ago, and it was coming up to Black History Month, and we started to talk about it. And a black friend of mine said, "You ain't got no business celebrating Black History Month because you is white." And I'm like, so because I'm white, I can't celebrate Black History Month? So what does it mean to you, Swoop? Do you do something for it on your show? Do you talk about it? How essential is it in today's modern times?
I have mixed emotions about a lot of these things. I think it's imperative that we in this country know the history of the country. We know the contributions that each and every one of us make.
Right.
To me, I learned in school different things that different people did, whether they were black, white, Hispanic. You name your culture and what they contributed to this country, and I think that's a wonderful thing. I don't know how I feel. I understand why they set these things up and have the whole month and try to get that education in. I think it needs to be done in the schools. I don't do anything special. I recognize a lot of the people. I studied a lot of the people that get mentioned during the month, and that's a great thing. But I think as a country that's supposed to be embracive of everyone, I think when we separate things like that, it kind of causes issues with people at times. But there's a lot of wonderful Black Americans who contributed to the country over the centuries we've been here, and it's a great thing. But no, to answer your question specifically, no, I don't do anything special. It's not a topic that we take up on our show, and not that it's not a topic we avoid. It's just to us, if we want to talk about something that someone has done, and we have a lot of sports figures on our show, we talk about a lot of athletes, and a lot of them happen to be black, and we talk about their contributions to the sports that they were involved in.
Absolutely. I mean, to kind of pick up a little bit on what you said about the way some people view Black History Month, and I've actually heard people say that they feel like it further segregates, and I think that no greater has there been a need in history for the community to actually come together with some of the things that we've been seeing in the news of late, but. Is a kind of segregational celebration, for want of a better word, the way to actually bring the community together?
No, not in my opinion. Because what you have is somebody's going to say, why don't we have a White History Month? And then somebody's going to say, well, you guys have all the history, and it continues to keep a divide. I think it's important to know who's contributed to what and what things we use every day and who invented it and who brought it to the forefront, what medical discoveries were made and who did it and whatever. But I don't think it's really that important to take segregate things and even though we are praising them and supporting a certain cause, I think sometimes it does continue to keep people separate in a country that we try to be more inclusive.
Absolutely, and I think that the same thing is often said about when every year in the major cities in the United States they have a gay pride parade, and you will get lots of people that will say, well, we don't get a straight pride parade. Why do we have to have a gay pride parade? And I kind of see, I really do see all of these points, and I think that the way to actually bring the community together is kind of, why do we always have to differentiate? And I think the LGBT community are even more kind of guilty of it, because surely the way forward is to put all these things aside and kind of march on together, for want of a better phrase.
Yeah, I think what happens is when we continue to look at each other as something different, as opposed to accepting people, for who they are.
Right.
And don't get me wrong. I mean, culture is a great thing. I mean, I like to go to certain areas and eat certain types of food and listen to certain types of music and whatnot. And I think that's fine. I mean, I have no problem with that. But I think when we do our celebrations and we segregate people, lots of times people feel that they can't be inclusive. Just like you said, your friend said, "Why do you celebrate Black History Month? Because you're not black." And when you start getting that kind of whether they were joking or not, but when you start getting that kind of a feel to things, I think it turns people off to the things that they can really be embracing all the time.
Absolutely, because for me it's kind of about how it's about living it, every day. And for me, my kind of legacy is how I act, the things I do, the things I try to affect change in. And I kind of, I don't know if I actually need a day specifically for that. I mean, I'd be the first to admit that there is still racism and discrimination in this country, but I'm not sure how helpful these segregated celebrations are in order to actually bring the community together.
Yeah, that's another thing, and like you just said, there's still racism and things in this country. But and people say that a lot, and not that it's not true, but it's worldwide. And I think having traveled to multiple countries, I think even though we make a big deal about it here, it's far less here than it is a lot of places in the world. And I think we've made some really great strides by embracing everybody and trying to embrace it as the majority of the people who live here embrace a lot of different cultures, a lot of different orientations, or whatever phrase you want to use, lifestyles, orientation, whatever you want to call. Right. And I think we do that well. And sometimes I think when we segregate things, we take steps back. Right. I like to see us more, just like if you want to talk about Black history, Dr. Martin Luther King said, he says, judge me on the content of my character, not on the color of my skin. And when we treat people that way, whether they're whatever they are, I think we move along further, and we could see the future can be a whole lot brighter.
Right. It's kind of interesting that you make the point that it's kind of better here than in other countries. I've lived a lot of my life in England, and I was kind of surprised, like when I came back to this country, that if someone's reiterating like a story, like something they've encountered, if someone had called them the N-word, they would say the N-word. And when I first came back here, I was like, what is the N-word? Because I really didn't know. Because like in England, they would just say the word, and so I was kind of, I'm obviously, very pro equality from the work that I've done for the last 25 years, but was heartened to know that, like in England, they would say the word, but they're polite enough, most people in America, not to kind of, reiterate, specifically. Kind of what has been said, but whilst I acknowledge we have come a long way with regards to equality and all forms, there is still a major amount of inequality across the spectrum, not just to do with gender, sexuality, race, but even financially. And things like that. I was surprised to see statistics from some research I was doing for a show a few months ago that there are more people in this country living below the poverty line than you would really actually expect. Living on less than minimum wage and feeding families and that kind of thing too. So I think that there's so much more work to be done across the board.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of work to be done. What I usually have problems with is we all agree there's a lot more work to be done. What I see a lot of times, and I hear a lot of times, is people don't acknowledge how far we've come. See, right. We've come a long way, and a lot of things. And the thing is everybody has a different belief on how to get to where we need to be, and nobody, and you're never going to get everybody to agree, and I don't want to live in a country where everybody agrees anyway. I want to have free thought.
Definitely
I want
not.
people to, yeah. So I think lots of times, when we talk about things, and like you said, living below the poverty line and things like that, that's not a good thing. But the other thing is when I was coming up as a kid, minimum wage jobs were entry-level jobs for kids, and or new people new to the employment thing. It wasn't designed to support families on. And if you had a minimum wage job that you were supporting a family on, then you had to have 2 or 3 minimum wage jobs to support your family,
right.
or not. You know what I mean? And those
exactly.
jobs, because when I was young, I had minimum wage jobs growing up, and that helped build my resume. So when I, was in college and looking for a career, and I had a resume there. And I think a lot of things now, especially in lots of parts of the country, all the minimum wage jobs are being taken up by adults, and a lot of young people don't have entry-level experience. And I know people that are graduating from college that have never had a job. So when you're graduating from college and you don't have a work history, and now you have a college degree, and now the only job you can get is an entry-level job because you don't have a work history, that's not a good thing. And that's a difficult way to go when you're trying to pay off student loans, and
exactly.
You're in all this debt, and you can't get you're having a tough time starting your career. And I think we have to look back at what minimum wage jobs are designed for. They're for people that don't have the experience, and then a lot of times it's a good way to get that resume start to build that resume.
Exactly. I mean, don't get me started in education. I have a real bugbear about education being elitist. Both here and in the United Kingdom. It's like the only people that are able to get better educated are the ones that can afford it or are prepared to get into debt to get better educated, to long-term be able to get a better job or a sustainable career. But, I've actually heard of some states, and I can't think of one off the top of my head, but they give free education. Some states do. And I think that, healthcare and education should be basic rights because if you have a good education, you are far more able to compete on an equal level with your peers if you've had that level of education. Because if you haven't, you're in the menial jobs line for the whole of your life, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, but there's a flip side of that. We've had this discussion on our show. We really push everybody to get a higher education, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But when I was growing up, there were high school classes that people took who were not looking to go to university. They were going to take a trade, and there were trade schools that they were encouraged to move into, and they learned how to do certain things. There's a lot of jobs out there that help keep this country moving, and things you need on a daily basis that you don't need somebody with a college education, a master's degree, or PhD to do.
Absolutely.
And those are times I think we're kind of stepping away from that, and I think that's the wrong thing to do. I think if somebody has the ability to name your profession that doesn't require a college education, that you can get through a trade school or an internship, and you can get things done that you need to have done, we should encourage that. And I think we've stepped away from that, and we're no longer seem to be encouraging people to take a trade. We're more encouraging people to take a profession that requires a higher education. And I think that's kind of we're dropping some people off that need to be helped along.
Absolutely, and I think that inevitably, not everybody is going to have that level of ability to go and have a college education. And like you say, there will always be a need for these. I'm not going to say lesser jobs, but because any job is kind of important and you're an integral part of the community, but for some jobs you kind of need less training. Because,
Right.
anyone could go work at McDonald's, and I'm not sure that many people would want to nowadays, but not everybody can go and train to be a doctor, And the interesting thing that's come out, and I was saying this like 20 years ago, was that, I was saying that in 20 years' time, there are going to be far less doctors, teachers, all of these kind of qualified personnel type jobs, because people can't afford to actually get the education, and it's ringing true. I mean, apparently there are far less doctors now than there were 20 years ago, and I don't think it's just due to the amount of salary that they get paid, because none of these jobs have actually increased salary-wise in line with inflation. All these frontline jobs like doctors, teachers, police officers, fire service, emergency, these are all essentials.
Right.
And the salaries have not increased in line with inflation, which I find amazing. Whereas your local politician has had a pay rise every year of $1,000,000, so that bothers me somewhat.
Oh, absolutely, and anybody who can vote themselves a raise anytime that once a year, once a term, and that's another thing. And don't get me started on politicians. I don't think politics should be a lifetime job. I think if you want to serve your community, it's a great thing. I'm not saying it's not honorable, but these people who finish 30 years in politics, they get termed out here, they end up somewhere else. You see the same names on the ballot over and over, and I don't really see where that's a positive thing, in the long term, and make yourself wealthy at the same time.
Definitely not. And the other thing is that apparently, like people like Bill Clinton and George Bush, I don't know if it's the same with a senator, but they have a salary for life. Apparently, George Bush has security for the rest of his life, and that's paid for by the taxpayer.
All presidents do, and I think they have a choice if they want to keep it. But that's one of the things. All presidents do have, I believe, CIA protection for the remainder of their lives. And you know what? And I don't really fault them for that, because when you've run the country and you've made some enemies and whatnot, and things like that. I don't really have a problem with us covering them for their safety for the remainder of their days. Some of these guys are living a lot longer than we expect them to. But,
absolutely, with some of them would actually want them to. Oh, did I say that? But I mean, I definitely, you're right about the security, but a salary for the rest of your life, and health care is out of the taxpayer's pocket. How appropriate is that? How fair is that?
That's here's my issue. That's actually the one job that I really don't have a problem with. That I do have a problem with people in the Senate, in the Congress, they have it for life, and these things like that. I think if you run the country as the president, for 4 years or 8 years, whatever the case may be. I don't mind that we will continue to support you on a reasonable. I'm not saying leave you in the lap of luxury, but I think they sacrifice a lot. You can look at regardless of which side of the aisle you're on, you can look at your guy when he goes in office, and he's got the perfect hair and looks young and smooth skin and stuff, and you look at him 4 years, 8 years later, completely gray, wrinkled up. They're reading things that we don't ever know about, and that's a lot of stress. I really don't have the issue with the president receiving those things for the remainder of their days. I don't think it should be to any of the other politicians, but I don't really have a problem with presidents.
Right. Okie dokie. Well, from politics to terrorism. Some would say the role is very similar. So shots were fired Saturday afternoon at a cafe in Copenhagen, Denmark, killing one person and wounding 3 police officers. Our freedom of speech event was being hosted by controversial Swedish cartoonist Lars Vilks. The manhunt continued for the lone shooter, and Danish Prime Minister Helle Thorning-Schmidt put the entire nation on high alert and condemned the violence as a terrorist attack. It's a bit of a shame our own POTUS is unable to even utter the words Islamic terrorism. Now, we feel certain that it was a politically motivated attack and thereby it was a terrorist attack, he told the reporters, and was present at the conference, but was not injured. Vilks told the Associated Press by phone that he believes he was the intended target of the attack, asking what other motive could there be. Now, the suspect and surveillance photos show the suspect wearing dark clothes and a scar. Police said initial interviews indicate only one person fired the shots and had left the scene in a carjacked, dark-colored Volkswagen Polo, which was later found abandoned. The event that the 68-year-old artist was hosting on Saturday was called Arts Blasphemy and the Freedom of Expression, according to his website. When the artist in Denmark, he receives police protection. So, what's your initial reaction to this latest attack on freedom of speech, and the latest in a long line of terror attacks?
Well, actually, I think there was a little bit more to the story. Later on that same day, I think they had another shooting, and then the police believe that they actually killed the perpetrator at, I believe, at a train station. My thoughts on this is it's out of hand. It's crazy. I think you should be able to say what you want, draw what you want. If you're offended, look the other way. Turn off the TV, turn off the radio, whatever it is. I think people have that's the same way I feel about words. I really don't have any problem with any word, and then we talk about hate speech and hate crimes and stuff like that, and I really have issues with that too. I think, is it hateful? Yes. Do we regulate it in a sense? No. I think if somebody is a racist, homophobe, name whatever they are, and they express those things, I want to know. I really do. I'd rather know, and then
Right.
walk. And I think these people who go out and commit these crimes, these terrorist crimes, because they didn't like what somebody drew or what somebody said, they have bigger problems than we can ever imagine, and they are dangerous, and we need to capture them and put them away as soon as they make those kinds of moves. And if we know they're going to do it, stop them before they do.
Absolutely, because if I went out with a gun every time, I'm quite a spiritual person, and I believe in God. And if every time someone was offensive about Christianity or even Judaism or about Jesus Christ, I would need a lot of ammo. I really would. So to me, if these people that are doing these things can get so offended that people have said things about the Prophet Muhammad or whoever, and will kill for that to me is very scary, because we live in a scary enough world already. I'm blessed every day to know that I live in a country where I have freedom of speech, and I won't get a knock on the door and be arrested for sharing my opinion, on a radio show or in something that I've written. But to have the added threat of if you say anything remotely negative about Islam, then you could potentially be killed for that. And then you've got the Pope saying that you shouldn't offend anyone's religion. So, I just wonder where it all ends, because this circular logic means that we would be able to kill everybody that offends us, and that surely is lunacy.
Absolutely, and I think what happens is here's the thing. Like you said, there's something said. daily that to me is offensive.
Right.
But you know what? I have no legal right not to be offended. I mean, if somebody offends me, I move it along. I just I don't pull out a gun and shoot them and say that's offensive. And I'm sure if you've ever listened to our show, we've offended many people on many occasions. But the bottom line is I feel happy to live somewhere where I can speak freely and say what I think. You don't have to agree. You don't have to agree with me, and we don't have to argue about it. If you want to have a discussion about it in a civilized way, I'm willing to do so. But to be in fear that I might have said something that's going to lead somebody to drive by and shoot at some place that I'm at, that is horrendous and scary.
It is that it is in essence it's very scary, but there is this is an argument that's been kind of floating around recently. Now, obviously I'm all for equality. If you move to a country that is not the country of your birth, and your religion is different to that of the main religion of the country, I think you should be able to still practice your own religion, but you should only be allowed to do that in tandem. When your religion, whatever it might be, when you start to use your religion to dictate to others about what they should do, you're becoming exactly like these Christian fundamentalists that say you shouldn't drink and you shouldn't be gay and you shouldn't you shouldn't do this, that, and the other. We as individuals, American citizens, whether born here or not, should not be dictating to others based upon their religious beliefs. It's not acceptable. And if you come to live in this country and want to work in this country and be an American citizen, that's absolutely fine. But don't try and break down our traditions in the process.
Oh, I agree. And the situation is everybody. There's always certain people, and no matter whether it's religion or politics, whatever. There's always the fringe movement. Okay, what generally happens though is those within that organization or within that ilk will say they're the fringe, they're nuts. They will speak out against them at times. And what we also don't see is a lot of times is those fringes bringing in a whole lot of people, training those people, and sending those people out to do bad things. We do see that in this situation, and it's constant and it's consistent, and we kind of don't want to accept the fact that these people are of a certain religious base, and they're utilizing that to justify their actions. And we're not saying that everybody who's of the same religion is the same. But nobody within that religion on a big scale speaks out against what these other folks are doing.
Right. Absolutely. And I think that they actually need to. I've had this discussion with some of my Muslim friends, and it disgusts me that they cannot stand up and say, I am a Muslim. However, I think the actions of the likes of ISIS and Hamas is not in line with the doctrine of Islam. If you can't do that, kind of peaceable Muslim does that actually really make you?
Well, I think that's the situation that a lot of people are dealing with, and a lot of people, I think within the last few weeks, I believe the Egyptian prime minister, president, I don't know the structure there, has spoken out, has said that these are not, that's not my religion. Those folks don't represent me. Those folks, and I think that was a big step forward, and I think we need to hear more of that. And you're right. I've talked to people that are Muslim who speak up and say that they just kind of well, it is what it is, and people shouldn't say things that way or disrespect this. And I don't believe that, but there's no big voice coming up saying, hey, this shit is wrong. I'm sorry, I'm not your show. I'm sorry. But this is wrong.
It's fine. Yeah. It totally, and this shit is wrong. Absolutely. But you see, for me, how can we how the point is, and I was discussing this with someone a couple of weeks ago. After 9/11, there was a negative energy towards all Muslims, and people said that was wrong, and that's right, because your average Muslim that lives in America goes to work, pays their taxes, does whatever they do, and stays under the law, kind of obeys the law. But it's not the moderate people. It's not the moderate Muslims that we have to worry about. It wasn't the moderates in Germany they had to worry about. It was the Nazis,
Right.
It's not the moderates that are going to kill you, that are going to come and slit your throat in your place of work because you've been flippant about the religion. It's not the moderates that are actually going to do that. So I do see that ideology. But one thing I really agree with is that when if we begin to talk about blame, we're all to blame because we've pacified these people for so long. Don't say this because it's offensive. We have to change this because it's offensive. If it's offensive, then don't damn well look or don't damn well listen. We have established traditions in this country, and for those to be broken down by people in the name of a religion is not acceptable. We cannot continue to pacify these people because this is the result.
Well, you made a point here, and we have kind of let that weigh in that, because what within our society has kind of, this is where I'm talking about. We talk about don't say these things because they're hateful. Don't say these things because of that. We looked at what happened with the movie The Interview. Sony pulls it initially. We need to kind of stand up and say, look, we live in a society where people are free to speak their mind, free to worship how they want, free to live with who they want to live with. And
right.
If you don't like that, then too bad. You have a right not to like it. You have a right to live the way you want to live, but we're not going to impose any one thing on the rest of us. Okay, that's just the way it is. And I think when we bow down to things, even if it's a knee-jerk reaction for a week or so, it kind of lends them credibility, and we need to kind of stop saying that. We need to kind of say these are the people that are doing these things. We don't accept it.
Exactly.
We live here where then that's just the way it has to be. And when somebody says we don't like the movie you made and we're going to do this to you, you go, too bad. This is our we freely make movies. That's the way it is.
If you don't like it, don't watch it. If you don't like what you're hearing, then don't listen. I mean, having said that, in the same breath, though, I don't feel that it's appropriate to be deliberately offensive to someone, because that's kind of like that's taunting it. I don't mean they shouldn't have made that movie. Quite rightly, it's a freedom of expression. It's an art form. Movies are an art form, and that was their freedom of expression. But I don't kind of think that it's fair. There have been cases of there was a case in London, I don't know if it was this year or last year, where somebody had pulled off this woman's hijab, and I think that the rudeness in whatever form is really not acceptable, no matter how justified you feel. I'm sure that woman did absolutely nothing wrong, so she should not be treated that way. Because if that was my friend or my mother or my sister, that someone had just gone up to them in the street and pulled her hat off or pulled her jacket off, I would want to punch their lights out, frankly.
Well, yeah, listen, you should never harm anybody. You should never, making a movie is, on set with willing participants, whether it's an independent film, and as you know, because you and I have done them with the hope of getting paid someday, or whether you get paid to be there that day, that's different than somebody who walks up and attacks someone or pulls some religious thing off of. That's unacceptable. You don't put your hands on anybody. You don't attack somebody. That's not right at all. And I'm not saying that. I'm saying that people have a freedom of expression. It doesn't mean that I expect you to come up and start screaming in my face and getting in my space because then we have a problem. But if you just say you don't like me because of whatever, that's your problem, and I'm moving on. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's never a reason to attack someone, no matter how mild-mannered you think it is and how funny you think it is. If you want to do something like that, you hire an actor, and you guys film your little shenanigans, and knock yourselves out. Put it on YouTube like everybody else.
Totally. And I'm talking of YouTube. I watched a YouTube video a few months ago where this guy was driving through an area in East London where it had been reported that a couple walking down the street, a man and a woman, had been told not to hold hands while walking down the street in this area because it was under Sharia law. Sharia law in the United Kingdom, and I thought, no way, this is BS. So as the video goes on, I'll have to find it and retweet it and post it. As the video goes on, they're driving through, and this guy, this Muslim guy who's a community warden or something, stops his car and asks him where he's going. He said, "This is England, mate. I will drive where I want to go. I'll do what I want to do." He went, No, not through these streets. It's under Sharia law. And the community warden punches this guy in the face. I mean, it's disgusting that it's got to that level in a civilized country like England. How far is that away from happening here? Where these little cliques, these little ghettos, where there are lots of Muslims begin to exercise Sharia law on American soil.
Well, I think it's just like I think we have a constitution. It says that, the state can't impose a law that supersedes the federal law, and I don't think any individual, any community, or any religion, or you name it, can create laws within our states or cities that supersedes state or federal law, and that's just the law of the land, and I don't think we should ever get to that point. And I'm surprised that it's happening in England, because I thought, you think England. When I think England, I think a lot like I've never been there, but I kind of think a lot of things similar to the U.S. And I would really be surprised if that happened here. And if it did, then we are heading on the wrong path. Because then anybody could set up a little community and say, well, this is the such and such community, and we're under such and such law. I mean, where does it end?
Well, it's not permissive. They don't do this by permission. It's just kind of like gang mentality. They've decided to police the streets in that particular area and to exercise Sharia law, but there's no kind of permission to do that.
No, I understand that, but see, then this is where if that situation is going on, and my understanding is the law enforcement in the UK has been passive behind that. Where I think that if that starts happening, I know when you set up little gang areas here in the U.S., then law enforcement generally tries to move in and abate that situation. And I think that's what should happen in situations like that, because citizens should be free to go where they want to go. And if you're being denied that access because someone has set up a law or set up a society within that small community that's not allowing you free movement within there, then your local law enforcement needs to take action.
Absolutely, and but I think this passive response is kind of just not working. And when I heard last week that President Obama had met behind closed doors with the Muslim Brotherhood, I was just like, what the heck is that all about? No cameras, no recording, no note taking. Why is the President of the United States meeting in the White House with members of the Muslim Brotherhood?
It's there's a lot of things that are happening these days that I don't think most people understand of why it's happening and how it's actually happening. I think when somebody has been deemed basically a terrorist organization and whatnot, situation like that, there's really the negotiation. If there's going to be some negotiation, they need to be out in the open. It needs to be very transparent.
Exactly.
And I don't think there should be secret meetings. I don't want to know. I mean, secret deal. I want to know there's no secret deals being made for whatever reason, or I think what happens is, plus, if you don't have any documentation, then you don't have any proof that you said what you said.
Right. Exactly. I mean, I don't want to turn this into a bash Obama session, but just some of his behaviors in this area have really concerned me, like freeing the top Taliban. So what are they going to do? They're not going to go and get jobs in McDonald's. They're going to return to terrorism. I mean, there are some that have suggested that the recent rise in terrorist activities have been attributed to these top Taliban being released. I mean, where is the logic in any of this? That's my question. There is no logic in any of this.
Well, I don't see the logic in it. I think somebody was reported last week where somebody we've released is, I believe in Syria, supposed to be under kind of house arrest. Has already reached out to people that he fought with on the front lines and is trying to get back there. I think we still don't know the circumstances of the guy we traded for. My understanding is, he left his post willingly. He deserted, his country willingly, and why we, I understand, there's families and it's human lives and stuff, but realistically, was he worth five fighters, for his return? I don't think so. And there's a lot of things happening, and we don't know all the details, but from the details that we do get, that just don't make sense.
They don't. And I think that if nothing else, American citizens should be able to have confidence in the president, because he is accountable to us, and for us to, I know you can't have a referendum every time he wants to make a decision, but how many more bad decisions should he be allowed to make, before something is done?
What I think happens a lot of times with anyone who runs for president or political office, you bash the other party, you say that you wouldn't do certain things, you look and you make these promises to your constituents, and then when you get to the office, you actually get in the office and you actually read a lot of these briefings and you have to make these decisions. Then your eyes get wider and you go, wow, maybe I was wrong here. And I think many times that's where guys fall down on some of the promises they make, because now it's real world activity. I think what it seems to be is our president is really, really trying to hold himself to some of these promises he's made, closing Guantanamo and doing these things. And I think, whether that's what you believe is right or wrong, whatever, you never telegraph. It's like if you're playing a game. And I know this is not a game, but say you're playing football. Let's start the Super Bowl. If you say, the first three quarters we're going to do this, and the fourth quarter we're going to do that, then your opposition knows what you're going to do, and they can wait it out and attack then, or they can counterattack based on what you're saying. And when you start making, we're going to pull people out of action by this date, and we're not going to no more boots on the ground until ever, and we're going to close this by that. I don't think that's a good strategy. To me, that's just not a very good strategy on how to deal with people we're fighting and people we're at war with.
But is it any wonder we're seen as a joke in the world right now with all these things going on? I mean, to me, it's I don't know. I'm in awe of the ridiculousness of some of these decisions that actually puts us at risk as a country. And these things have not been taken into consideration fully enough for the long-term strategy of terrorism prevention, because returning the top terrorists to the countries they came from originally, it to me is just lunacy. I don't believe we can just be so passive about it. I was shouted down for. You remember when the Nigerian guy was on the taken off the plane because he had a bomb in his underpants,
right.
and I was shouted down for saying they should have just put a bullet in his head on the tarmac. If you're prepared to kill American citizens, then let me cut out that middleman for you. Let me kill you. If you're prepared to die in that process, let me just put that bullet in your head now. And I was the worst human rights person, since the year dot for saying that. But surely, go on.
No, what I think here's to me, it's a lot of it's much deeper than what we're actually discussing. The problem is a lot of the problems we have dealing with situations like this and whatnot is because of the two-party system. We have two parties that claim not to get along, but if you live in D.C. and stuff, you can see the same guys that argue with each other on the floor having dinner with each other that night. They're so busy trying to please constituents, and I think lots of times decisions are being made for political reasons. And like you said, something about what are the long-term effects. I think lots of times decisions are being made that don't take long-term effects into consideration. What they take into consideration is, did I get one over on you, and did that make my side of the aisle happy? Okay, and we live in times that are far too dangerous for that kind of BS.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Now, we're coming to the end of our time together, Swoop. Tell us a little bit about your show, who comes on, what kind of things you talk about, and when it's on, so people can come check you out.
Well, thanks, Xander. Swoopsworld Radio. It's at swoopsworld.com. You can find us there, and we come on Wednesday nights, 8 p.m. on the Pacific, which I think is 11 p.m. on the East Coast. We discuss a variety of topics. Very rarely do we discuss politics or religion. We spend most of our time, we have guests. Usually we have a guest the first hour, and guests from all walks of life. Not to say we haven't had anybody who's religious based, but we haven't interviewed politicians. But we've done a lot of independent artists, a lot of athletes, a lot of business owners, fitness experts, health experts, you name it. We don't really turn anybody down. Authors. We seek out people that are interesting. That we think are interesting to listen to. We do that the first hour, and top of the second hour, we do a beer tasting segment where we taste beers and we rate them and let you guys know what we think about them. We have a former NFL star and a collegiate All-American, Anthony Davis, comes on for about 20 minutes later on in the evening, and then the last hour of the show, it's the three of us. T-Bone has a sports segment, and we talk about news of the day. And we're on for 3 hours every Wednesday night, and it's live then. And you could get us on all kinds of apps and whatnot, and different podcasting things. And they're all archived on iTunes on our site, and all different ways you can download for free afterwards.
Absolutely. Now, tell me, is this beer tasting just an excuse to have a few beers while doing this show? Be honest.
No, because we were already doing that before we got the beer tasting segment. So
right.
it gives us an excuse to please a sponsor and taste some good craft beers each week.
Absolutely. You should invite my co-host Ty Egar onto the show. He's an author too, and he's doing the rounds with his book right now. His book is called Mother's Ruin. He would be good to have on as a guest.
Absolutely.
So tell people where they can find you on social media, more importantly, where they can follow you on Facebook and Twitter.
Yes, Facebook, Twitter, everything's Facebook, Swoopsworld. Twitter is at Swoopsworld, all one word. Facebook, we have a radio page, which is Swoopsworld, and And my personal page is Swoopsworld. Last name Swoopsworld, first name Swoop. And we're on Instagram and all the other ways. If you go to our website, swoopsworld.com, you can find all the links to all of our social media things there, and follow us and join us and like us and all those kind of cool things, and we appreciate it.
Absolutely. And if you go to the show page for today, www.xandergibb.com/radio, you will be able to check out all of Swoop's details, and on the Facebook link for today's show too. So what have you got? What's exciting is happening this week for you, Swoop? Anything
this week
to write home about?
This week I'll be heading back home to California, and Wednesday night we have a great guest. His name's Bob Case. He is the vice president of the International Boxing Association. He's also a collegiate football historian. He's always controversial and interesting to listen to, and has tons of stories. He, real quick, he was, Casey Stingle's business manager. He has stories about all the old greats and movie, TV, baseball. He started off, working in the clubhouse as a kid, and then worked his way on up. And really an interesting guy to listen to. And I think if you tune in, you'll enjoy it.
Absolutely. So make sure you check out Swoopsworld on Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Pacific time. And for now, thank you so much for joining us today and being a guest co-host. I hope you come join us again, the fantastic Keith, a.k.a. Swoop Lewis. Thank you so much, Swoop.
Thank you a lot, Xander. I appreciate you having me on, and it was a great time. Thank you, man.
Thanks a lot. Have a great day. Take care.
All right, you too.
Bye-bye. That was Swoop, the host of Swoopsworld. Make sure that you check him out on Facebook and Twitter, and be sure to tell him Xander sent you. Oh, yes, indeed. Where are we? So, originally from Glasgow, Montana, LA-based singer-songwriter Kenyth Mogan released a new single this week, and he chose to come and share it with us. Unlock Your Heart is the song. And we're going to take a listen while Kenyth prepares himself in our virtual green room. So let's check it out right now. This song is called Unlock Your Heart, and it's by Kenyth Mogan, and it goes a little bit like this.
You may not believe in love at first sight, in the thought of giving your heart. Oh, you wanna run away, yeah. You may not hold on to the dream of finding the thing. Oh, but let me be the key. Let me unlock your heart. Show me where to start. I'll give you everything that I've got. Let me unlock your heart. Let me unlock your heart. Well, I know the pain of loneliness, and it's the fear of facing the night. And I know you wanna give your trust away, but the past has left its mark. Oh, but let me be the key. Let me unlock your heart. Show me where to start. I'll give you everything that I've got. Let me unlock your heart. Sooner or later, you'll see that I'm not lying. Seasons will change.
Oh, yes, indeed. That was Unlock Your Heart by Kenyth Mogan. So join me in welcoming back to the show the one, the only Kenyth Mogan. Welcome back to the show, Kenny. How you doing?
I'm well, Xander. Thank you. Thank you for having me back.
It's a pleasure to have you. So tell us that we just heard your new release single, Unlock My Heart. Tell us about it, how it came about, who wrote it, what it signifies.
Well, it was written by a friend of mine named Matthew Hayes and his friend Aaron Harris. They wrote the song a while ago. And it was the last song I recorded for the EP. And we decided to do one more single. And I wanted it to be, another original song. And I just decided that I really loved the album version, and so I asked Matt and Aaron if I could do a video, and they said yes. And so I said, okay, cool. Well, we're going to do this one, and we mixed it a little bit different, and had fun with it. I'm really proud with the final product.
Absolutely, it's a really good song, and it's catchy, and it's the kind of song you can hear once and you can sing along with. Do you know what I mean? Some songs you listen to 20 times and you can't kind of like pick it up, but I listened to it once and I was able to sing along with it a little bit. So I've got a big problem categorizing myself and my music. What genre would you place your music in?
It would probably be more pop dance or dance pop music, kind of bubblegum stuff.
And who are your contemporaries? Who would you say are similar? You are similar to? Is there anyone out there?
If I had to choose, probably someone like Chris Salvatore, Blake McIver. Someone lumped me with Steve Grand one day, which I was totally flabbergasted by. I'm like, okay, but I've actually met Steve, and he actually just promoted the video on his Twitter, which was really cool. He's a really great guy. I absolutely love Steve Grand. So
brilliant.
So to be lumped with those guys, I was like, hey, this is kind of cool.
So are you a managed act or are you an independent artist?
I'm indie, but I do have a manager and an agent. So I have a team of people, which is awesome, and they're people that I've known for years and years and years and years. My agent, Carlene Drager, is with Dramatic Artist Agency, and her daughter is one of my best friends, and then through her I met my manager, Jeremy Sani. So I'm all under Dramatic Artist Agency. I'm not an actor, but they have me just because they're really close friends, and I don't trust anybody like I trust them as far as managing my career, because you hear a lot of people like, oh, it's not show business, or it's not show friends, it's show business, and I'm like, well, when you have friends that are helping you, they're a lot more apt to help you, to push you if they have a personal relationship with you, I think. So, and they're just amazing, wonderful people.
Absolutely. So, are you doing much live performance right now?
Not right now, no. We're working more on the album, I'm working more on the album, and then once I get that, because that has a little bit more organic feel to it, it's got a little bit more acoustic sound, a little bit more rock than just the techno of the first EP. So once I get those, and I can put together a live band and things like that, then I'll start performing live.
Right, absolutely. So you're from Glasgow, Montana. Do the people from your town refer to themselves as Glaswegians, as they do in the Scottish place called Glasgow?
I don't know. I don't think we really have a name for ourselves. It's we're the Scotties, because that's the team, we're the Glasgow Scotties, which is original, I guess. But really, that's what we call ourselves. We're just the Scotties.
Absolutely. So who are your influences? Who's on your iPod? Obviously, apart from Xander Gibb, who's on your iPod right now?
I grew up listening to the music of people like Tiffany, who sang I Think We're Alone Now back in the 80s. I love Mika. I play a lot of Mika, a lot of Steve Grand. And I think you and I talked about Charlotte Church a lot. I play a lot of her.
Right.
And so just, I don't know, I have a lot of 80s music on my iPod.
Yeah, I'm a bit of an 80s buff, too. I like a lot of 80s stuff. But I like a lot of modern stuff, too. My tastes are kind of eclectic even. See, I can't speak today. So, I watched your video and stuff, and I was wondering, as a gay person, are you comfortable singing he in a song as opposed to she? Because, I flatly refuse to sing she in a love song, and I often replace it with he or you. What about you?
I'm the same way. I would be more uncomfortable saying she just because it would be totally fake as far as I'm concerned. I wouldn't be able to sing a love song about a girl just because that wouldn't be true to who I am.
Right. And do you think it's dangerous nowadays to be an openly gay artist, or do you feel it's something you don't have a choice in, really?
Oh, well, I don't think it is. I mean, I see, Sam Smith is someone that I refer to when I talk about this, just because he's breaking down so many doors. And I mean, the dude's won Grammys, and I mean, so he's at the top of the game, and he's a totally out gay man, and he's not ashamed of it. And
right.
where the whole adage of the Hollywood closet it's very quickly fading away. You have a lot of young singers and actors coming out, saying that they're bisexual or even homosexual. It doesn't matter to this world, and that's what I think is so great. I think it's absolutely wonderful that we're getting to a point where a lot of these hot young actors in Hollywood, they're asked about what do you look for in a relationship, and a lot of them are saying, well, what I like in men is different than what I like in women, or what I look for in a guy is this. It's absolutely wonderful to know that we're heading in the right direction.
Absolutely. And I think, take the gays out of Hollywood and it's a ghost town, let's face it.
Exactly.
Whether they're actually out or not, that's the way it's going to be. So we're going to play your next song now, Live Your Life, Be Free. Do you want to set that up? Tell us a little bit about it, who wrote it, what it's about.
Well, this song it was a cover song that was supposed to go on the EP that we just never really found a place for. It's a cover song of a Belinda Carlisle track, and we just kind of recorded it just because I wanted something to play with, and it's a fun little song. I really enjoy it. It didn't really work for the album at all.
Right. I didn't realize it was a cover song. Actually, that's quite a good thing. To have listened to it and not realize it was a cover song, but we're not allowed to play covers anymore because we get into trouble for copyright, and they want to charge us for playing it on the show. So I'm sorry, we won't be able to play that with it being a cover. So what I like to do now, we've got to that stage in the show where we're going to play the quick fire questions round. Are you up for a round of quick fire questions?
Sure.
Brilliant. Okay. So we're going to start now. What question do you most hate to be asked?
What question do I most hate to be asked? Probably what my sexual oh my gosh, I can't think. I'm sorry, I'm still reeling from a car accident, so I'm a little bit out of it today. Probably what my
orientation. Is that the word you're looking?
Not orientation, but top or bottom, basically.
Oh, right.
I hate that question.
Next question. Are you a top or a bottom?
Ha 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 ha.
Okay. Who is your idol?
Tiffany.
Favorite TV show?
Right now, The Flash.
Tacos or sushi?
Tacos.
Madonna or Lady Gaga?
Madonna.
Worst movie you ever saw, and don't dare say anything that I was in.
Worst movie I've ever seen, probably Glitter.
Okay. Walking Dead or Breaking Bad?
I've never seen either or.
You've never seen either?
Never seen either. I'm not I'm not a big fan of shows like that. I only zombie show I've ever seen is a show called In the Flesh, which is an English zombie series on BBC. It was on BBC Three. They just canceled it, and it just gutted me. I was so sad. It's a brilliant show. Luke Newberry, Emily Levins is in it. It was written by a guy named Dominic Mitchell, and it was my absolute favorite show.
Okay, have to stop you there because quickfire denotes that the responses are quick. So.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right. Lots of people don't get the concept. All right, rice or pasta?
Rice.
You find $50 in church. Do you A, keep it, B, give it to the minister, or C, do you give it to the homeless guy outside?
I put D. What am I doing in church?
Without burning up.
Exactly.
All right, paper or plastic?
Paper.
Which 3 celebrities, living or dead, would you invite to dinner, and what would you serve?
Probably Steve Grant, Tyler Posey, and Corey St. New. And probably whipped cream. That would be all I need with those 3.
Whipped cream. Okay, well, let's not delve into that any further. All right, the Cosbys or Fresh Prince of Bel-Air?
Fresh Prince.
Oprah or Dr. Phil?
Oprah.
Madonna and Lady Gaga are drowning. Whose head do you take your foot off first?
Madonna.
If you found a coin with the date 10 BC on it, would it be authentic?
Would it what?
Would it be authentic?
10 BC, probably not.
Okay, which celebrity could you willingly slap?
Kim Kardashian. Kanye West.
Yeah, I said celebrity. Favorite TV Muppet, and don't say Kim Kardashian.
TV Muppet. Kermit.
Yeah, most people say animal, so it's refreshing. All right, final question in the quickfire questions round: law and order, criminal intent, or special victims?
Special victims.
Absolutely, and that concludes our quickfire questions round. Our team of psychologists are backstage now deciphering what those answers say about you. So what's next for you, Kenny? Where are you going? What are you going to do with your music? Where are you taking it?
Well, right now I'm working on the album. Now that the single's out, I've started working on the actual album, which I'm really excited about. I'm working with some really great producers, some really great songwriters, and I'm really, really, really excited for it. I have the next single already recorded and ready to go when we get the video produced. But I'm really stoked. I've gotten to do a lot of different things with the first album. The EP was so quickly put together that there was no time that went into it. And the album I've been working on since like June.
Absolutely. So I want to ask you a question. We're going to show the video on the TV show next Friday. So for those of you who are listening that actually watch the TV show, you can check it out there. But I'm kind of intrigued. Who wrote whose idea was it to do the video in the way that you did?
It was all my manager. I wanted Bewitched. I was very adamant that I wanted a Bewitched music video. And he was inclined to kind of, let me do that. And then he listened to the song a few more times. He's like, Bewitched isn't going to work. It'd be stupid. It just won't work. And he's like, give me a minute and let me think of something to come up with. And he called me about 45 minutes later and said that he went through the kind of treatment and he got to, okay, and then you open a drawer and you see a pair of ruby slippers. And I got super excited. I was like, okay, yes, Wizard of Oz, got it, let's do it. And he's the one that kind of put the team together as far as the production company, which is Kenyth Pictures. We produced it. I started a record label and production company. We all kind of did it together. But Kenyth Pictures, they're run by a man named Rob Pageant and Tanya Einen, and they're really, also really, really, really close friends. And so I put my faith and trust in people that I knew would do a great job. And the video turned out so much better than I could have ever hoped for. Rob and Jeremy co-directed it, and Rob edited it and color corrected it and did all with the effects that Jeremy created the Emerald City, but Rob put a whole bunch of time and energy into it, and it was such an amazing experience. My costume designer for the Tin Man built the Tin Man from scratch. His name is Shane, and the amount of effort that these people put into it was so amazing, and I was just blown away that it turned out as wonderful as it did. And we had some nice, Andrew Christian gave us some clothing, and all these people like really believed in the project. It was really, for me, kind of amazing, just because not many people know who I am yet, so it was really cool that they believed in this project enough to donate time and energy to turning it into what it did.
Well, I have to say the video was very impressive too, and it really does sell you well. Now we're coming to the end. Sorry, go on.
Oh, I just said thank you.
We're coming to the end of our time together. I want you to tell people where they can find you, and most importantly, where they can buy your music.
The single's available on iTunes, Amazon. It's all online, Spotify, all of those places. The music video's on YouTube, and then I have KennethMogan.com. I think I'm on Facebook, Kenyth Music, and then Twitter, Kenneth.Mogan.
Absolutely. So make sure you go check out Kenyth and be sure to buy his new single, and keep your eye out for the album, which will be released when?
In December.
So you've got plenty of time to save your pennies to buy Kenyth's new album. So thanks so much for joining us today, and I hope you will come and join us again when your album comes out. But for today, thank you very much, and have a great week, Kenyth Mogan.
You too. Thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot, Kenny. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye. That was singer and songwriter Kenyth Mogan. Make sure you check out his social media. Make sure you buy his new single, which is called Unlock Your Heart. Thanks to everyone who's made today's show possible. Thanks to Swoop for co-hosting. Thanks to Kenyth Mogan for dropping in. Check out his music on iTunes and all good music retailers. Next week, my co-host will be Ty Egar, and our guest will be Will Noonan. Thanks to you for listening, and thanks for your continued support. Don't forget to check out my TV show, episode 12 of my talk show, Xandermonium, Friday, February 20th. Chinoeth, I don't know what that was, on Channel 68 on Optimum, and 34 on Verizon, and afterwards on the YouTube channel. Thank you so much for listening, and I love you all. Bye-bye for now.